I can't wait to share with you today one of my absolutely favorite topics to talk about. It's a topic that I've seen change lives like no other. Let's get started and talk about the importance of blood sugar management, blood sugar monitoring at home, the importance of teaching our patients and clients how to test their own blood sugar. And why? Why is that so important? Why did that completely turn my practice around when I started to do it? There's so much misinformation out there. We know that 93% of the population is metabolically unwell, which means their blood sugars are all out of whack. We know that in conventional medicine, testing blood sugar is usually a late stage thing. We test it and we wait until the blood sugar is in the diabetic range before we take somebody aside and tell them what to do about it. We want to know when the blood sugar starts to go out of balance. And usually it's 20 to 30 years or even more before a person develops diabetes. Because the truth of the matter is, many people who are currently metabolically unwell may never go on to develop diabetes, but they're still having a lot of the dangerous side effects, the dangerous complications that people get when their blood sugar gets so high that they get diabetes. Damage to the retina, damage to the kidneys, damage to the artery walls, and damage to peripheral nerves. Most people want to drop a few extra pounds. And when the blood sugar and insulin are dysregulated, we have a problem. So, how does the body process glucose? The sugars get through the lining of the digestive tract and into the system. And once there, it triggers a cascade of hormonal changes. It triggers the pancreas to say, oh, what? Look at that. Glucose is up. Okay, let's get insulin on board. Let's get insulin to escort that sugar into the cells where it can be used to help the mitochondria to produce energy. And out of the bloodstream where it can be damaging to a lot of tissues, like the retina of the eye, like the kidneys, like the blood vessel linings and the peripheral nerves. All of these things can be affected, and even the brain can be affected. Excess levels of glucose in the blood contributes to, like, the biggest plague that people think about is Alzheimer's. We do not want to lose our memories. Alzheimer's, and it's related to blood sugar imbalance, elevated blood sugar over a long period of time, dysregulation, and guess what? We can help them to control that and detect it early on before the changes occur. I had a patient who had was a little bit overweight, wanted to drop some weight, had low sex drive and a bunch of other things. And he had started to get peripheral neuropathy. He started to get the numbness and tingling in his feet. And he asked the doctor, he said, could this be related to diabetes? He said, no, you don't have diabetes. Your fasting blood sugar is in the 90s. You don't have diabetes. And he learned from me and from other functional doctors that there was other blood testing that could be done, namely hemoglobin A1C. So he went out and ordered it on his own and was shocked to find that his A1C was 10. The A1C should be somewhere around 5. We taught him how to test his blood sugar. We got his insulin tested and it was off the charts high. His blood sugar after eating meals through the roof. He had these really high peaks, but because he made so much insulin, it dropped down so that by the time they measured it first thing in the morning, it was back down to normal. And he also didn't eat late at night, so that helped with bringing it down close to normal. So we taught him how to test it. We've worked with people over and over again who have problems with that extra weight around the middle that won't go away. And they try this diet and that diet, extreme starvation, and it never really goes away for long. And in those people, usually it's because insulin is so high. We can look at the blood sugar and we can see how everyday life affects it. How does stress affect it? How does lack of sleep affect it? How does exercise affect it? Usually positively, and unless somebody's over exercising, how do the foods affect it? That one person might eat a banana and their blood sugar goes up to 90 and then comes back down. Another person might eat a banana or a half a banana, a little bit of a banana, and their sugar goes up to 180. I see this all the time in my practice, but also in our blood sugar programs that we teach to hundreds of clients at a time. The doctor says you just have to test your blood glucose first thing in the morning fasting, and then 2 hours after your meal. And as long as it's 140 or lower after your meal, then you're okay. Well, 140 is way too high 2 hours after a meal. Usually the peak happens at about 45 minutes to an hour after the meal. By 2 hours, in a healthy person, a metabolically healthy person, that glucose should be back down to baseline, back down to the fasting level. So whether it's, 85, maybe a little higher, maybe in the 90s, maybe a little lower in the 70s, but somewhere in that ideal range. There's a number of ways that you can teach people to measure at home. One is a glucose meter, a glucometer, and it's basically finger prick and put the blood on a little strip, and it goes into the meter, and it reads what's the blood sugar right now in time. It's a tiny little prick. It doesn't hurt beyond a second or two, just a little prick in your finger. And we want to find out how the body's responding to foods, stress, exercise, sleep, etc. So what we do is we have them check regularly. And I mean, when I'm first teaching somebody how to test, I usually teach them to test before the meal and then 15 minutes after, and every 15 minutes until they see that it goes up and then it starts to come back down. And that's usually a good measure. So they may be doing, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 measurements. What can we do about it to get better compliance since people don't want to poke their finger all day long? Well, one thing that we can do is help to people to get on a glucose meter, a continuous glucose meter. One of the things that we do is you can put it on your arm, some of them you can put on your belly, and it's just constantly measuring the glucose. So it helps us to see, how does diet, how does lifestyle affect the body's glucose levels? How does it affect it? How does stress and stress management techniques? We found that you can have somebody's glucose go way up, and because they're stressed, and then take them through like a heart map process or some sort of visualization, and it goes down. We watch it go down in real time. The other thing that affects it is sleep. If they're having every night's a bad night's sleep, then they have chronically elevated glucose, and insulin resistance develops very, very quickly. If they only have it occasionally, you're going to see it trend out like, oh, baby kept me up all night. Baby was teething and crying all night. So now I have this problem where everything makes my sugar go up the next day. So lifestyle affects it. And these, having a meter, whether you're testing it with a glucose meter or a continuous glucose meter, it helps a lot. Whether you're testing the glucose through a finger prick, a glucose meter, or a CGM, there's a financial investment. But let me tell you, it pales in comparison with the financial cost of having diabetes. With the CGMs right now, because they're prescription only, there's limitations, and we'll talk more about that on our next episode on CGMs. Most of the monitoring tools are available in any pharmacy, at least in the US, and I know Canada and overseas. It's so easy to get and so inexpensive. You can get a meter at Walmart or Safeway or any of these places for like $15, and the replacement strips for like, 25 cents each. So really not that cost prohibitive when you think about what it's saving people in the long run. I highly encourage you to visit our site at iandemethod.com. You'll learn more about our programs, but also we have some free resources for you, and you can check out the show notes page. We have a link to our insulin resistance class, which is a paid resource, but we also have a metabolic health free resource that it's a book about metabolic health and fasting and some of the other approaches. For more information on functional lab testing, click on this video over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share for ongoing information about metabolic health and functional health and nutritional endocrinology.